right here, Mark Biel. Mark Biel is current acting chief of science and resources management at the Padre Island National Seashore. He's been at the park for 2 years, involved in most aspects of resource management. Jack of all trades, master of none. That fits about most people in this room. So, Mark, go for it.
Is this the slide changer?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present on how the National Seashore, easier said than that, manages sargassum. Just touching on the previous presentation, part of my jack of all trades, master of none duties is research permitting. So if anybody is interested in doing research in the park, you can contact me, and if it fits our management goals, then we'd be more than happy to work along with you and do some further research on this activity on our beaches. Just for those people that, I know there's a few of you out here that aren't familiar with the area, the National Seashore is right here in the green. It's about 65.5 miles of undeveloped beach, and it's the longest stretch of primitive undeveloped barrier island in the nation, if not in the world. And it's a dynamic environment that is impacted by winds, storms, waves, and the tides. So. We're a little bit different than some of the other management agencies in this area. As part of the Department of Interior and the National Park Service, our mission is to, it seems kind of conflicting at times, but we basically have to conserve scenery and natural resources for future generations, but at the same time provide for the enjoyment of the same in such a manner that they won't be impaired. So sometimes that seems kind of at odds, but part of what we do is try and balance those needs of the environment and of the visitors. So, on that note, some of the multiple uses that we see our park visitors partaking in, surf fishing is a big one, as we've seen by several of the presenters already today. Sunbathing and swimming is, again, very popular, as is camping up and down the whole length of the island. Bird and wildlife watching are also very big. And kind of on the topic of sargassum is the beach combing. We get a lot of folks that come to the park, and they'll just spend a week or a long weekend here, and what they'll do is they'll just walk around looking for either seashells or some of these sea beans that wash up in the sargassum. And some people stop you and talk to you about it, and they have quite elaborate collections of these sea beans that wash up. Some of the other uses that we have on the beach are beach driving, oil and gas activity we do have in the National Seashore, and administrative activities like we see here. One of our turtle volunteers is doing a patrol starting this time of year. During the nesting season for the Kemp's Ridley, we do have our patrollers that drive up and down the beach looking for nesting turtles. Again, our issues are quite a bit similar to most of those other agencies that have already presented. We do have marine debris issues, whether it be plastics, medical waste, fishing nets that do wash up and cause resource impacts. We do have some creative buoys that wash ashore that we don't know where they come from, but sometimes they get creative, or else I was painted afterwards, hard to tell. But then also we do have the sargassum in the National Seashore that brings some of this stuff ashore with it. So what do we do in our park? For those of you that have been there, again, this might be redundant, but for those of you that haven't, you come down Park Road 22 into the park, and if you go down to the North Beach access, there's about a mile of road that we call North Beach, where people can drive. We do not do any raking on that section of the beach. There is about a 4.5 mile section of beach that we call closed beach, where there's no vehicular traffic allowed, just pedestrian traffic and administrative use of that area. We do some raking in this area, as was touched on in an earlier presentation. We rake approximately a 1/4 mile of the beach in front of the visitor center, and then approximately 100 to 200 yards in front of the campground. And that's basically to allow the visitors that come there to have a clean place to throw down their beach blankets or whatever and enjoy the beach. We do use a rake, as Dr. Withers showed in her presentation earlier. That's usually good until the sargassum hits about a foot deep, and then that's not an option anymore, and we bring out the front end loader to clear it away. Pretty much the rest of the beach, once you hit the end of Park Road 22 all the way down, is about 60 miles, and we do no form of beach cleaning down there. It's all natural processes that take place. Our maintenance staff are the personnel that conduct our beach cleaning activities. Especially at this time of year, we make sure that the people operating the vehicles are trained in the sea turtle nesting identification. They have actually found, working this big equipment, they have seen tracks and they have reported turtle nests, so it's kind of good to have some trained personnel out there. And each day before they go out there to rake, whether they're using the rake or they're using the front end loader, we do send some turtle patrollers down there just to do a sweep before they go out there in case there's a lot of activity. Sargassum, as we have learned today, does have its benefits. Not to get into what we've already learned today, but basically as it dries, kind of gets blown towards the foredunes, acts as a stabilizer for those foredunes, and then some pioneer species can get in there and get that area vegetated and provide for a stronger dune to protect us against storm impacts. And it also does provide food and cover for shorebirds that rely on the seashore. We're kind of lucky. There's numerous flyways that kind of converge in this area. That's what makes this area one of the greatest birding areas in the country. And so they come here, and you'll see ruddy turnstones out there picking through the sargassum along with sanderlings running around. It's kind of fun to go out there when there's sargassum, just as long as it's not 4 feet high like it was last year. That's just a nice little picture of what the seashore looked like a couple weeks ago. And that is all I had. So, open for questions or whatever.
How often has it been more than a foot deep and you had to use the front end loader?
Last year we used the front end loader a lot because we had such huge quantities coming in, but I would say probably more often than not we're able to use that rake. But again, it's all just dependent on how much is washing ashore. Yes.
When you do rake the seaweed, where do y'all place it?
Last year we had to kind of create little mounds, but usually what we're trying to get the people to do is when they rake it up, distribute it along the foredune so it's not in a huge mound. Kind of spread it out in thin layers so we're not building a false little foredune in front of the main dune structure. So we're trying to spread it out. So, yes.
On the rest of the beach that doesn't get raked and it gets high, what happens to it after that?
We just let the tides will wash it in, and it'll get buried in the sand or washed back out. Sometimes you go down there and people get real ambitious and they get their rakes out and they want to set up a camp and they'll rake huge areas of it and clean it up themselves. But usually we just let it go, and the tides will take care of it, either pushing it up or carrying it back out. I think there was a question way back there.
Yes, I was wondering if you still had your drum removal program where you gas cat and remove drum wash ashore.
Yeah, we still have the drum removal program. We have a crew of, I believe it's like 6 or 8 personnel in the park that are hazmat trained, and they go down there and collect those drums, and we contract out them for people to come and take them away and properly dispose of them for us. So, Tony.
Do you train your operators with the heavy equipment and see to all habits so they know not
Yes.
to?
Yeah, they receive basically they receive the same training that the volunteers do at the beginning of the year. And when they find, a nest or a nesting turtle, then, they know how to respond, and they'll call it in on the radio. Pat, you have a question?
I wanted to know if you had noticed any difference in the width of the beach changes over the years where you clean it, i.e. in front of Malachite Beach, and the area north and south that you don't break it up.
Yeah, since I've just been here 2 years, I probably can't really touch on that. But
down at the Seashore.
yeah, they're. I think what we see more on that closed beach section where there's no driving is the beach profile looks a little different than where beach driving is allowed, but there really hasn't been research on that to say that that's what's causing it, if it's the raking that's creating that.
I was referring to where you clean the beach in front of Malachite. Is it narrowing any more than the beach immediately south and north where you don't rake it?
I don't think it is. Doesn't appear to be.
Do you find any questions from visitors about the value of sargassum? Do you provide education to them, and what kind of reception do you receive?
Yeah, our interpretive staff is always answering questions at the visitor center, and basically kind of what I've put together here is they get the benefits of it and how it drives people crazy, and we try and present it in a neutral fashion and let them form their own opinion on it, but we kind of emphasize how it is good for the environment.
So what is the reception from visitors?
Just the times that I've been up there, I mean, there's really no complaints. I mean, I was out there, with my family last year when it was, knee deep, and you were walking around out there, and there were still people out there in the raked area. But then there were also, hundreds of yards on either side of that, wading around in the sargassum. The kids were having a ball in it, and didn't seem to mind. So,
how about the oil companies? I think they employ escorts.
Mm-hmm.
Are they also as trained in turtle identification, habitat, or habits? And
yep, for the oil and gas escorts during the turtle season, we require them to have two Park Service sea turtle trained escorts, one in the front of the convoy and one behind the convoy. And then as they travel down island, they're both looking for nesting turtles, or at least signs that one has happened by, and they have actually found sea turtle nests for us also. So one time right in the ruts where a previous convoy had gone by earlier that day. So it seems to be working. So.
One more.
Good.
Has oil and gas been allowed on the seashore?
Pardon me?
How long has there been oil and gas exploration on the seashore?
I believe the first well went in the 50s before it was even a national seashore. 51. Yeah. And it's been a permitted activity since the seashore was created, because we got the surface rights but not the mineral rights. The mineral rights were retained with the private landowner. So.
One more, right here.
One more? Okay.
Wanted to know whether there was a problem ever that you know of with the oil trucks going down.
In what regard?
Well, going down to the beach to their location. Have you had any problems?
Other than the occasional vehicle getting stuck in I guess the quicksand or whatever you want to call it.
Environmental damage, is that what I'm guessing?
Yeah, we've never had an oil and gas vehicle, run over a turtle or a bird that we know of. They haven't run any visitors over, which is always a bonus. And, so they're under some actually pretty strict regulations on where they can drive. We require them to drive above the current wet line. They're not allowed to drive down in the swash zone. They're not allowed to drive on the face of the foredunes. And so they're actually pretty limited on where they can go on the beach. And with the escorts and a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit for them, there's really not too many issues that we've had with them.
Sorry.
All right.
For time. But as we're seeing that our beaches are narrowing, how will that affect where they can drive? Because they can't drive in the swash zone where it's wet. They can't drive on dunes. mean, their road's getting smaller and smaller, so eventually they're either not going to have to have a road, or they're going to have to drive where they shouldn't, or create another road somewhere. Do you foresee any kind of competition there, or what they need to do?
We're hoping that that's way down the line when we're retired, but but there are alternatives that we're looking at, for alternative access down island, and then again, it just depends on the demand for oil and gas, the traffic, how that increases, and because if that starts slowing down, then it'll be less of an issue, for those big vehicles to get down island. But we're begrudgingly, starting to address that issue. So.
All right. Thank you, Mark.